Good morning, everyone. So Joe's out today, so I'm the chair of the meeting, and I think we should wait a couple more minutes to see if we pick up a few more members. It's like we're missing 4 still. Okay, we should get started. I think we got it. We have a quorum anyway. We're not voting on anything today, so it's less important. So I'm sharing the pre-notes, if you will, the agenda and the announcements. So as I said a few minutes ago, Joe's out today, so I'm going to run the meeting today. And I've reached out to a few people and tried to collect some topics. I don't know that we have a full agenda, but we'll see how it goes, and maybe we finish a little early today. So in scrubbing around looking for topics for today, I saw a note from Paul about the outreach committee is having a working session tomorrow, April 14th, 10 a.m. I have the link there in the announcements. So if you want to show up and participate in helping define the OPI slide deck templates for presentations, please do. Also, me and Joe started in the TSC Wiki a new document called Parking Lot that we were using to brainstorm ideas for this meeting. So I would welcome people, if you want to get an idea out in front of the TSC, to get that into the parking lot document, as well as bringing it to Joe's attention. And then the last announcement is to, I guess, ask if there's any agenda items that you want to add today that I don't already have listed in the agenda below. So the agenda today I have is a few outreach comments about the SmartNIC Summit from Paul, a lab update from Venkat around equipment purchases and start dates for our lab space, and the mechanisms to get that moving. 3 is I asked Mark to talk to us a little bit about activities in the API work group. And my particular interest is around the progress in the networking API area, but I think he was going to touch on storage and Kubernetes work briefly too. So I'll shut up for a second here, and anybody who has another agenda item, please jump in and let me know about it. Okay, so we'll call that an agenda.
Perfect.
So Paul, are you ready to jump in? Do you need to share?
I do need to share if you don't mind.
We'll jump off.
I think I'm sharing the correct screen now. So we have a half-day session at the SmartNIC Summit on the 13th of June from 1 to 5 p.m. Pacific. This is in San Jose. And so Manoj and I have been organizing this with the SmartNIC Summit. And Joseph is going to end up being the moderator. So the MC, he will introduce, he'll do an introduction on what is OPI about? Why should you care about standardization for DPUs? What are we doing here? And we'll move into the first presentation, which will be one about use cases. And we're looking for a speaker that can speak to this. Alad has who would be the, as the lead of the use case work group, would be the first person I'd go to. He has a conflict and cannot be at this meeting. So I need someone who's been involved in the use case working group that can be at the SmartNIC Summit to step up, be a speaker, and to work with the use case group to develop the slides and the talk that would be presented there. Anyone here want to volunteer or voluntold to someone that they work with? Bueller. Any ideas? Who works with Alad and others on the use case work group on a somewhat regular basis? Do we know?
Yeah, I have been attending that group. So I do need a little bit of preparation for that. So maybe I have to check how much time we have.
Well, yeah, we have until June. So the conference isn't until June. There's time to prep and prepare for it and be ready for it. It's just a 20-minute slot on use cases.
Yeah. So
cool. So I was going to say it might be as simple as, asking the people involved in individual use cases to prepare a slide or two and then collect that in a deck and then have one person just walk through all 3, 4, 5 use cases, and that would consume the 20 minutes.
Yep, that would be great.
Yeah, so I attended the meetings regularly, a use case, and then there is a slide already with different use cases from different customers. So maybe I think I can volunteer here, but I would need a little bit of time from Elad, so that because when we stand in front of people and take their time, we have to give them enough value. So
exactly. Yes.
Prepare and it's easy to volunteer. It's important to deliver something of value. So if I can get a little bit of time from, again, that's my concern, right? So I will, if I can get a little bit of time from Elad, I will volunteer for this. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Venkat. Lifecycle and provisioning. Joe is going to work with the team on that one. Who leads the lifecycle and provisioning? Is that
Boris?
Boris leads that.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if Boris is on this call. I can't see who's on or not.
He's not on.
He's not on.
No, Joe and we're trying to get approval for some of us to be able to be out there, Paul, but we have to work that still. Sorry.
Is it Mark's talking?
Yes, this is Mark.
Okay. Thanks. So yeah, I heard that Joe was working on that. So that might be Boris, might be someone else. How about for the APIs?
That's me. And again, we're trying to get approval for travel, so.
Trying to get approval for travel. Okay.
I would put those in as pending travel or something, Paul, on your list.
Okay.
Yeah, we got the request to do this yesterday from Joe.
Just an optical question. You know, if we have a lot of Dell representation, it might maybe no one would really understand what we're talking about, but would notice that there is, you know, just one company presenting a lot.
Yep.
I wonder if we could find a way to balance that out.
I'm all for balancing that out. What I've been running into is the folks that want to present don't have approval to travel to the event or are not in San Jose to begin with. That's one of the issues I'm running into with trying to nail down who's going to present where.
Yeah, Boris and I are both not in San Jose.
Right. And getting you there is the issue. I'm not there either, but I did skin of my teeth got approval to travel. We wanted Chris to be the moderator, Chris Murphy, but she's unable to travel. I am willing, and yes, making this a Dell and F5 show so far doesn't seem to isn't my idea of involving the community in presenting, but it's who's been able to travel so far.
Do you have a suggestion, Dan, on how we could balance it better? That would work?
Yeah, there are several folks at Intel that will be there, so I will ask around. I'll be on sabbatical, so I can't personally try to help rebalance, but I do think that there should be several Intel options for certain slots. So I'll go work on that.
Okay. Yeah, and if we've got Venkat from Keysight doing one, that helps balance as well. But
One obvious way is if we had, particularly in presentation 2 and 3, 2 co-presenters, you know,
exactly.
each give 20 minutes and they're from different companies. That would give us the kind of optics we're looking for.
Yep.
So we could find a co-presenter to go with Mark and Boris in those sessions. We need someone who can travel or who is in San Jose from those companies to volunteer. I mean, obviously, Dan, I think that maybe in API, that would be a place Intel could come in. Maybe Marvell or NVIDIA would want to come into the life cycle and provisioning. That's just me talking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we can find somebody from NVIDIA to help.
Okay, great.
I'll check internally with Marvel.
Thank you. That would be great.
It's anything about the use cases already presented in the demos that I did. I could co-present. This is Mircea.
Mircea.
Okay, so that would be with Venkat on the use case.
Yes, on use cases.
I mean, we are both from Keysight, so it will be good if I'm co-presenting with Boris or somebody else. So that's not like.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
If there is such topic.
Yeah, there is a topic where we wanted to look at the proof of concept projects that are in progress.
So that would actually be what he's suggesting, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for that, we can also add somebody from NVIDIA.
Is that correct, Mircea? I'm not seeing the list of participants to make sure I'm spelling it correctly.
Yes. It's
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Got it right. You get an A on that one.
I get an A on that one. Perfect. So we had talked about having an ARM presentation and how ARM is, since ARM is on many of the DPUs as the compute complex, how they're going to interact with OPI, how their systems are going to interact with OPI. got a little bit of pushback from the SmartNIC Summit organizers that it was too vendor specific. So I'll be working with the ARM team, working with Mark to figure out what we can do to make it less vendor specific. And
Yeah. I have a similar, I guess, issue. We had that same presentation in the provisioning meeting this week. And
okay.
I strongly recommend that we figure out a way to make the presentation about how we're going to support multiple compute complexes, just like we're doing on server, how we're doing multiple architectures, and not just this is how we're doing it on ARM, because it just we do not have an ARM complex on some of our IPUs, and it's not a good thing.
Got it. I understand that. And so maybe we find a way to get you and Mark and I together to figure out how we can create how the core, I don't know how best to say this, the compute vendors, the vendors that are putting cores on these DPUs are interacting with OPI.
So Paul, if you remember when we set out to define what the DPU IPU is, we actually said that. We said that it has to have a programmable chip that is for the management and provisioning. We didn't say ARM. We said it's a programmable chip.
Exactly.
So we have that language already. And although again, ARM is of course the leading vendor, as long as it's a programmable, C type, C++, C type of a programmable core that can handle the management and provisioning, it's all fair game, right?
Yep.
So I
So
would say at the SmartNIC Summit, there'll be tons of time for folks to do their vendor pitch.
yes,
So
there will.
we really need to keep the OPI half day as kumbaya as possible.
Yep. And so Dan, if you and I and Mark want to find some time to figure out how to make that happen, I'm more than happy to do that with you. So, but again, yes, the SmartNIC organizers came back and said that seems a little too vendor specific. Let's tone that down.
Yeah.
So we will.
Which is the same feedback you're getting today.
It's the same feedback I'm getting from this team. So makes sense.
Does anybody know? I mean, I was in the provisioning meeting this week where ARM presented, and the system ready stuff they showed was very much about trusted compute. Is the system ready framework actually much broader than that? And they only showed us that little piece of it. I don't really know. Does anybody?
I don't believe so.
Because I mean, if we were going to present that, we would say, hey, we want a framework for trusted compute. It should meet these needs. And then ARM has system ready and Intel has whatever Intel has, and they both meet this. And so OPI is ready to embrace these because it meets our trusted compute needs. But I don't know that we're there yet. Maybe we'll be there by June tonight to talk about that. But
by the way, system ready is much more than trusted compute.
yes, this is what I'm suggesting, right? It's much more than that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
but that's sort of leading us towards, let's start with a solution and then define the generic requirements as opposed to the other way around.
Yep.
So it just it's again, it's not a great look, I would say.
right. I mean, a session about trusted compute, why it matters on DPUs, and how OPI is going to address it would be much more compelling as a session.
You can probably pull the requirements from the provisioning and lifecycle because they have a section in there on the compute. And then you can blend that in with the different options that would be provided by Intel, ARM, or any other vendor.
Yeah, I'd recommend not even having this as a separate presentation. If you already have a provisioning presentation earlier, all of this should be wrapped into that. I thought that we were going to use this fourth presentation as sort of it should be something that sort of culminates everything that's in OPI. Like my recommendation.
Yeah, a Q&A session for 25 minutes, where we get all the organizers up there on stage.
Yeah, but I think it would be better to have the fourth presentation be, where is OPI going? Like, when, the question will be, when do I see a system with this stuff on it? Like, when can I buy it, right? Like, shouldn't it be a lot more high level, as opposed to like this is sort of like a featured speaker, which, the whole rest of the summit's going to be about that. So
Yeah.
well, why don't we find a different topic that is more, wrapping things up, giving the roadmap and the direction that we're moving. So for all the people who have no context, can sort of feel good about, okay, well, I watched the session and this is where they're going, and can go report back to their whatever CTO that this is what's happening. I think we need something like that in this. If it's just this is what OPI is, and we go through a couple of the use cases and then have Q&A, we're just not, like, we're not addressing the audience, which is people, showing up wanting to be wowed. Like, what is OPI? I don't even know. What does it do for me? Like, I really think we need to answer that question.
I think that I agree with that, and I think that what is it going to do for me is the main question that we need to answer, because I think that we've done a good job, and most people that are in this field know of OPI. Now we need to make sure they understand, what is it going to do for me? And for me, that means showing where we're going as far as what are the releases that we're going to release next, and what is the bigger picture that we're thinking about for 2023. So it's the Nginx, it's the networking side, whether it's Kubernetes or OVS or anything else that we have in our pipeline. We need to make sure that they understand, that the audience understands what, I agree with your point, what are they going to get from us? What can they actually deploy, use, that is interesting and exciting?
That for now. So a session on what is OPI going to do for me? Kind of a summary
feature.
session, is that?
And a future looking, right? What is OPI
Yeah.
going to do for me in the future?
Yeah, now and in the future, what is OPI going to actually bring out? So we described everything that builds OPI and how we go through the process, and we described the pipeline to you. Now let's show you what's coming down the pipeline.
Okay. And that's different than the POC one here.
Yeah, I think the POC is very specific, and this would be a more sweeping, hand-waving conversation that spans
Okay.
many use cases.
So we need a hand waiver, not a technical person then for this session.
I'll elect Rob Sherwood here. I haven't fully confirmed that he'll be at the summit, but I believe he is, and he's in San Jose. So if you want to put a name down, and then
is he back in San Jose?
yes, he moved back from Istanbul. So yeah, he's in Oakland, and I do believe he plans to be there. So if you want to, and he's really good at the sort of that type of, telling the story and explaining things. So
He's good at hand waving, is what you're saying.
Hey, don't undersell that, Bark. That's a skill.
No, that's a big deal.
You
know.
shouldn't be ashamed of that. No shame in that.
No,
Yeah,
there's no
for
shame
sure.
in that. I'm just laughing.
Okay, so then that's I like this. We will work on that, and I'll work with the ARM team to let them know what's going on then.
We probably would like to add John Kim from the NVIDIA side, but I'll confirm with him as well.
Yeah, that would be ideal, actually, if we could get all the vendors, like, forget about what they say. It's what people see, if we had a session, what are we going to do in the future? All the vendors are standing up there together. Be powerful.
Can
Yeah.
Rob Sherwood play guitar? Because if he can, we can really have a kumbaya
We can
moment.
jam for sure. Yeah.
Um,
At least the maracas or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and maybe if we could find a Marvell speaker to join in, that would be a good session.
And I think the time is good, 30 minutes. It's a good time slot for that topic.
Okay, I'll check. Sure.
I missed that. What was that?
No, I'm saying I will check internally with Marvel.
Okay.
I'm
sounds-
representing Prasoon at this call today. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, attender. Perfect. Good. And then, like I said, the last will be a question and answer panel that we can do. And then just logistically, we were thinking it would be a great idea for after this, for any and all to be invited and do a big dinner together somewhere. So we'll, so that all of the OPI related folks can get together and chat amongst ourselves. Just have some good fun. So that's the thought there. I think that's all I need to chat about today. Any other questions on this?
Paul, not a question, comment, because we're looking for somebody local. Vipin is local. He attended the last SmartNIC Summit. He's a good speaker.
Who's local?
Vipin, Jay.
And he's with AMD.
For this last session, you think?
It could be anything. I think we should reach out to him. He generally, he's local, and if he attends, he's a good speaker, explains things very well. So,
okay.
Yeah, definitely.
On
That's a
Slack
great-
and fairly active there.
Yeah, he should be on Slack. I've just seen him on there frequently.
I will ping him on Slack, point him to this abstract, and ask if he's going to be there.
because hand waving is already taken, we can ask him for the song and dance.
Okay, there you go. Hand waving
Somebody
done.
has to sprinkle pixie dust in the crowd too.
All right. I will stop sharing and pass it back to you, Tim.
Okay, so actually our next topic is lab update with Venkat. Do you need to share anything, Venkat? Or are you just going to speak to us?
No, I do. Just it makes it easy to. How do we share this? Can you see the screen?
Yeah, it says OPI lab update.
Okay.
It's a little
So-
shrunk though. No,
Sorry.
no, it looks good. I'm sorry. It looks good.
Okay, you can see it, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, so lab update 413, all the folks involved. So quick status and then next steps. So we have this unofficial lab committee. That's what these are the names you saw. The group is still there. Nobody left. So I'm hoping they're still there. And maybe it's a good time to make it official. There are a few things we need to do. So that helps. So I'll take that offline and make that an official group, whatever that means. In terms of status, you're all aware we selected Hurricane Electric. We have guidelines in place already. We have some good amount of guidelines in place on how we want to spend our budget. What is the BOM? What do we want to buy? We even have the phase 1 BOM, which is even more focused to what we need to do immediately versus 3 months to 6 months later. So these are all good stuff we already have. That's a good thing. There is a little bit of documentation work that's happening in the background right now. It started as statement of work that we put out as part of asking for a quote. That got morphed into a statement of work that Hurricane Electric gave us. We have reviewed that, looks okay. We have another week to review one more time. because the way they described versus the way we described, we want to see if there is any overlaps or if we miss something. Just to be meticulous, I don't have any specific concerns there because there's so many of these vendors involved. I'm sure the Hurricane Electric would treat us well. I don't think this is a big money play for them. So the idea of reviewing some of them is mostly to make sure we have clarity than anything else, right? And then the next document is in terms of there is a Linux Foundation document that we propose to them as to sign as an agreement to take it forward, a commercial agreement. I think they have come back with their master MSA and saying they want to follow that. So Sridhar is coordinating that with Linux Foundation Legal. So they are going to engage. This might take a little bit of time. I think there are some clauses there that makes it not completely straightforward. It's not complicated yet, but there's a little bit of discussion going on there, and that need to close so that we can go ahead and sign. When we say it will be Linux Foundation, right? In terms of some dates, I think because of course a lot of this is pending legal, but I think lab billing, right? Because we asked for a lab and they will start billing us. There is some discussion, I think, in the board or if I remember, maybe TSC, and do we want that billing to start right away? Or do we wait because it takes a little bit of time for us to get the equipment? Things are not available immediately. So there again, my recommendation, which I will go back and we'll talk in this lab committee and bring back, at least my starting opinion would be that I think we should just take the lab because they've given us a very low quote. The monthly fees are not much. We won't save by trying to save a month of the billing. Instead, if we have some equipment that we are able to get quickly and are able to start building it, that has a lot of value for us. We won't be able to set up the complete lab anytime soon, but partial lab has a lot of value. Whatever is up, we can set it up and start using and playing with it and start connecting into either CI/CD pipeline or to help Mircha, who is doing the heavy lifting on setting up these things, right? Giving him a little more time, and anyone else who volunteers. More time is useful. So there, the recommendation, at least the starting point is, let's start the lab as soon as possible. The moment we have the legal document, we sign and we should get started.
So Venkat, so as soon as we sign the legal, we can issue POs for equipment and have a address to ship to?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, yeah, as soon as we say legal and then tell them what date we're gonna start.
Right. But we don't want equipment to show up before we have space. That's the challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So so definitely the first equipment ordering, I would like to think we can start ordering by next week. Because we do want to, I do want one meeting with the lab committee to kind of just review where we are and then move forward and make that group official. But it may be the same time, we may need this week for the legal to also finish their work. I'm hoping that these things will align, and by next Friday, we'll start shipping small things, if not anything, cables and whatnot, right? Small things. There are some like switches that might have shorter lead times, but we have to see. The full lab ready date is maybe practically impossible with all the supply chains. But so I think going for whatever we can get a partial lab up is where I think we have to focus in the short term. And then again, all of it is pending legal. I hope we can finish it in a week. So that's where we are. In terms of next steps, there are, even though we have a lot of guidelines, looks like there are a couple of updates we still need to do because it's not a personal money, it's a public money, all of ours. So it's good to be a little more meticulous here. one update we have to do is as part of vendor selection, we did develop some vendor selection criteria and some methodology we used. Some of it's good if we publish and keep it in the GitHub. There are some parts which are all the quotes and the actual, how do I say, confidential information or pricing from the different vendors who gave us quotes. That we will safely destroy, I guess. We'll have to delete that. That was the agreement in the selection committee, that we don't want to hold on to this for a long time. But there's a selection criteria that could be used, revised for next time for ourselves. So maybe there are other projects who can benefit. So we would like to publish that. The next one
then Kat, so when we're buying a non-DPU equipment, switches, router, servers, how are we choosing vendors and models there?
Yeah, so that's what I was about to. Good question, right? So we do have an equipment selection criteria, but it is missing a couple of lines about how is it vendor neutral, right? And I think the best suggestion at this point is it's vendor neutral because the selection is by a committee, and then this lab committee. That's why we may want to make it official, and then put that into those documents we already have. That we are making it vendor neutral by making or going forward, the vendor neutrality will be implemented / enforced by this lab committee, which has like 5-6 vendors over there. So it's not part of our rules and guidelines and all that. So we will have to add that, I think. So that's the work that we have, right? And
okay.
Yeah, so I mean, any other suggestions are welcome, right? And we will again send one more message in the general in the Slack general group saying if anyone is interested, please join. That way, that group is open. It's good to limit the group to be small enough yet big enough, but not like 25 people. Will be hard.
Yeah, we should review the members too, Venkat, to see if they're all still active, right?
Yeah, that's what I would.
I saw Jan was on the list, and I'm not sure he would still be active or not. Should ask him.
Yeah, no, that's what we intend to do this week, and so we'll make it official, and by next Friday we'll come back, and then. But meanwhile, it's good to send a general invite to folks who have interest in that general area, so that they can join. And again, trying to be procedural. There are 2 big action items, though. I did put them in red. Maybe Mircha, you could jump in. Even if we want to buy certain things are not yet finalized on which DPU and which DPU model server, and the folks who are building such labs already have identified some issues. So it's important to listen to them and then make sure that as we build OPA lab, we use that learning. At the same time, we need some of these data. So Mircha, would you like to jump in and maybe elaborate?
Yes. So one of the discussions we had about selection of gear was not to make Lego pieces and buy servers with DPUs that have been pre-qualified to make sure things are working properly. This works very well for Intel because they offer to send a server with DPU already qualified. Now for Pensando and NVIDIA, I reach out to both Dell and HP. Both have servers with both vendors already pre-qualified. But I got 2 comments on it. One, I believe NVIDIA part number provided Bluefield 3. So neither Dell, neither HP don't have a server pre-qualified yet for sale with Bluefield 3. So I don't know, Elad or somebody, if
I already
we can get
provided Bluefield 2 updated numbers to Paul over email about 2 weeks ago, Paul, right? So you can look up those numbers instead.
So in the lab group Slack direct messages, I've put those part numbers. They're all there. So
thank you, Paul.
For Venkat and Keith and everybody who's on part of that lab group committee, we've got that, and I'll paste it here. And I think I can paste it all in chat.
And you can find those on all the vendors, both the ones that you mentioned and additional ones.
Yeah, there we go. I pasted
Okay.
it in chat along with a whole bunch of emojis that I don't know why are there. So
Okay, I will join that group. I was having all my questions in the team POC dev platform, and probably this is why nobody was answering to me. I mean, Paul, you are the only one that answers there. And then I got some feedback from Boris regarding the CPU selection in terms of performance that will be able to achieve in terms of IOPS and other metrics. So if people can review that also will be great. What I got was basically 2 CPUs, each with 16 cores, so total 32 cores. But Boris' feedback was that may not be enough to serve all the use cases. So if we need to select better CPUs, do we need now 32 cores per CPU? Do we need newer generation of Intel CPUs or AMD? But if it's a newer generation, neither Dell or HP didn't have those available at that time. So
Did Boris say what use case he was thinking was so high compute?
it was storage, IOPS.
Yeah.
The
it's
comment
just-
was like, this will not be able to meet the requirement for storage IOPS.
Yeah, it's storage IOPS, and we've been using 32 core dual socket servers for that.
So 64 core total?
Yep. But you got 2 NUMAs.
And you're talking real cores, not vCPUs,
No, these are real
Yeah.
cores.
real cores, okay. Well, the
Okay, so I
dollar,
think that was
the
the
prices go up
info.
as you add cores.
Yep, we
Yeah.
know.
Okay, so that was kind of the information that I was missing. So, okay, so I'll double the number of cores and ask again for quotes.
Question, Mircha, or maybe we need to go back, ask Boris, right? Why do we need so many cores? Are we getting to any performance? I mean, there should be enough cores to do basic functionality testing. Our lab is not a performance or a
So it was for
benchmarking.
storage IOPS.
When you do storage performance IOPS, you start running into limitations.
But isn't that a performance?
Yep, it's a performance measure. I mean, if you just want to do basic stuff, you can probably reduce the cores.
You can demonstrate the functionality with fewer cores. You just can't max the card out in performance.
Correct.
Yeah, but because our intent is not to do performance, right? Our benchmarking and comparison across vendors, maybe we don't need to increase the cost and build it.
I would say that there is another reason to increase, because think about where we're going. And where we're going is probably service chaining between multiple apps or multiple use cases using the same DPU. So we do want to create an environment that will be able to scale later down the line. So I would argue, whether it's Intel, AMD, or ARM-based CPUs, we need the higher end in order to make sure that we can, you can always scale down, but you cannot always scale up.
Well, the other thing is if you're just talking basic functionality, it's one thing. But if you want to do comparisons among vendors, or if somebody wants to do comparisons among vendors, then you really need to look at performance numbers, because that, basically they're going to run about the same. But when you start looking at performance, there's significant differences.
Again, to Venkat's point, I think we were actually trying to avoid that, Mark, and not
Okay.
have our lab turn into a performance benchmarking arena of that
Okay.
kind. It's much more
And
about
the other
getting
thing
developers to get on these cards to get functionality going, as opposed to trying to prove whose card's better so you can go buy a bunch of.
And
Yeah,
remember that the first thing that we're doing with the lab is CI, and that's it.
yep.
And so that's what these servers need to be able to accomplish, is run the CI.
Yeah, 32 sounds like decent number of cores. Okay, so okay, on that, right?
One more thing, let's not forget about Marvel. So I tried to reach out via multiple channels to get a quote. I was unable to get a quote. So if somebody from Marvel is willing to provide a server, a quote, something so we can have something to start with will be great.
Yeah, I
And
did get,
I don't know if
yeah, I posted the part number for the Marvell CN 106, but did not.
yes, but
get
I
a
asked for a
server.
quote from
Yeah,
I could not even buy the DPU by itself. Forget about the server, we did qualified already, and yeah.
Yeah, I will get the right people in touch with you.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure on the DPU also, right? So NVIDIA Bluefield 3 is not where we'll go ahead with, right? We will go with 2, and then because you have pre-qualified, we'll proceed, right? That's the understanding.
that was a lot.
So yeah, two reasons for that. One, Bluefield 3 is currently in the cycle of being certified by these guys, Dell, HP, Lenovo, and others. So it's not ready yet. And two, it's in short supply because it just launched. So we much rather start with Bluefield 2. As soon as Bluefield 3 is commodity, we'll have that as well. But we'll send that as well.
Got it. Understood. Yeah, I just want to clarify because the original question was he was trying, Mircea was trying for Bluefield 3. So okay, understood. Thank you.
I think it's on you then, Elad, to tell us when Bluefield 3 is
Yes,
ready and you want it
it
added
is.
to
It
the
is
lab.
on me. It's definitely on me.
That's all we have from the lab.
I will try to put together quotes and more specific hardware and all the details, and to have it reviewed probably on next time
Yeah.
we meet.
It would be nice to just have the review right before the POs are issued, so everybody can look at it and bless it. And be informed, really. Okay, so our last topic is try to get a bit of an API update from Mark. You have enough time, Mark? 10 minutes?
I can get what I can get done in 10 minutes if you want.
Okay. The screen is yours to share, or you can just speak to it.
Oops. Hang on, I just did something. There we go. Let me share here real quick. So basically from an API perspective, where we're at, we've got, we have a good definition of the storage API. It's already been put in place. A lot of work that Boris has done from the storage perspective there. We've got the front end, middle end, and back end APIs defined. There's a discussion going on today as part of the agenda to talk about QoS on the storage and what we need to do with that. From a security standpoint, we have an IPsec API defined. So that's in place and out within the GitHub site. On the networking side, there's a lot of different pieces in play right there. Currently, we're doing a lot of work and discussions around Kubernetes and how that needs to work, how it needs to be laid out, what are the different shims that need to be put in place, et cetera. So there's a lot of ongoing discussions around that, a lot of contribution from Red Hat in terms of where we need to lay this, what the CNI tie-ins would look like, et cetera. So that's still an ongoing effort, and we haven't got a definition yet of the API protobufs for that particular area, but at least we're starting to get an architecture laid out. From the cloud perspective, Pensando's contributed their cloud view of the networking protobuf definitions. So there's definitely a cloud view. We still got to work through what a generic enterprise view would look like, and then start to take all of these different APIs and try to consolidate where we can into a common view of the common pieces, and then anything that's specific related to a particular aspect. So if we were looking at enterprise, there may be specific enterprise aspects, there may be specific cloud-based aspects, et cetera. So that's kind of the view on the API perspective. The other thing that we're trying to get put in place is a deeper level view of the architecture. So If you look at this diagram, this is a real high level diagram we did way back in the early concept. We need to flush this out in a lot more detail and start reviewing what the architecture and the stacking diagrams would start to look like in more detail from the API. So that's one of the actions that's still pending out there. And other than that, I think that covers all of the high level things. Oh, we still also need to coordinate with Dash to see where the Dash capabilities that have been put in place for Sonic and Dash tie into this. There's also discussions going on around what networking environment or operating environment would be there. So looking at it from the standpoint of, is it an OVS? Is it a Sonic? Do we need to support any solution that vendors may want to put in place? That's another aspect of this that has to be dug into and looked at.
So I'll follow up on the Kubernetes
Mhm.
CNI work. So I've been in some of those meetings, but not all of them. And a lot of the discussion was around the CNI offloaded to the DPU, but still serving containers and pods on the host. Do we think that work also addresses the use case where the CNI and the containers and pods are all on the DPU? Is it really kind of the same problem?
It's kind of the same problem. The early parts of the discussions, and they're on the earlier recordings, we actually talked about the deployment on containers inside the DPU, as well as containers inside the host and how that would work. But we've been delving more into how it would support the containers in the host with the CNI the way that you just described. So that's been what the recent discussions are, is how you can make it work and how you can map everything. And then we have to go back and circle back on how we would do containers inside the DPU and how we would service those with the CNI and the API.
Okay, yeah, I know there's a lot of near-term interest in offloading the host, but
Yep.
as someone who wants to deploy apps and services directly on the DPU, I'm even more interested in the locally hosted CNI on the DPU.
Yeah, that was, we covered both in the early discussions, but then we've done more deeper dives into how you do the support with the containers being resident in the host and not so much on the DPU right now.
And this problem about associating PCIe endpoint identities between the host and the DPU,
Yep.
that's
actually
tied into this problem, right, of pushing the CNI onto the DPU.
correct. And that's actually one of the topics for today, was to bring up the fact that we need to get that identity defined. I think from the provisioning meeting there, Dan was going to come back with what Intel has in mind, but it's a topic that we're going to bring up today also in the API meeting.
Okay, well, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or topics for our last couple of minutes?
Now, Tim, I put in the chat. Can you take those part numbers and put them in the minutes? So we don't lose them when Slack decides to rotate that out. That's the only place I've got that information.
Oh, okay, and I don't need to post the emojis,
Don't need to post the what?
the emojis that you stuck in there?
No, you don't need the emojis. I don't know why those. You could if you wanted to. I mean,
Okay.
but
All right, I'll do that before I close out the meeting. So I think we'll call it a meeting, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next week. And a final shout out to say, if you have a topic for next week, please get it to me. I think I'm hosting next week as well, and then Joe will be back after that. So thanks, everyone.
thank you.